Hi, this is Summer Todd. I'm doing my mystery show tonight. Basically, talking about some paranormal experiences I've had. Also, talking about phone calls and computers and things like that, especially with in light of the AT&T thing that just happened over the week during the week. So we can get started with that. Uh, my first story, I think, that happened to me recently. I got a new phone uh, from T-Mobile, and I'd had it probably about 2 months. And I was in the kitchen one day, and it rang. And all of your contacts have a name, so it came up under my husband's name, and we always called him Cuddles, so it's kind of silly, but we had a nickname for him. So um I saw that, and it was really scary because I mean I still have him in my contacts and stuff. So it came in, and I was just like kind of shocked. So I tried to answer it, I think, but there was nobody. It was like staticky and stuff. And so it just kind of just I think I hung it up or disconnected. And I got to thinking, how does that happen? Because I know when I went to T-Mobile, they said that they had given his phone number to someone else. So it's been assigned to someone else. Um, and it bothered me. And I told my boyfriend about it. And he's like, well, go ask them. Go ask them how's that happen. So I went to T-Mobile because it's right down the street from me. And I was like, I talked to this young boy guy, probably 20s. And he was like, that can't happen. I said, well, it did. And I said, and I showed him. And he's like, well, I don't understand how that could happen because even though he's in your contacts, that number belongs to someone else. So it shouldn't have come in on your phone. He said, so I have no idea how it could have happened. He said, it's kind of weird. Um, so yeah, and I still can't figure it out. I mean, it's just really scary. And it was bothering me so much that I called his old number, and I got a hold of this real nice lady, and I told her, I said, I don't if you don't want to talk to me, it's fine. But I said, can I ask you? I said, here's the situation. I said, my husband passed away. His number obviously was given to you. I said, there's no way that you called me by accident, is there? And she's like, no, I haven't used my phone today at all to call out. She said, I'd use it a lot for texting and things like that. But she said, that's really strange. She said, I'm sorry to hear about that and all of that. So, but she didn't act like she was like, scared of me or anything. So I even asked her, and I still to this day can't figure that one out. So yeah, you remember that happening, Austin, don't you? I told you. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty weird.
Yeah.
So, what, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, seriously, like, what do you think happened there?
I don't know. I think I might have put it on a Facebook post or something, and I got some feedback on a paranormal group, and a lot of people said that they feel like people that have passed on can contact you through electronics often. I don't know. I mean, with all the technology and stuff we have, I suppose it could just be some kind of glitch, and it's not paranormal. So I'm not sure.
Well, that whole concept is what inspired them to come out with the movie for, what was that? The one with the little blonde-headed girl where freaking she got sucked into the TV.
Poltergeist or
Poltergeist, yeah. Poltergeist.
yeah,
That goes all the way back to, like, the beginning of spirituality, like the new spiritualism they got. Like, not the actual old stuff, but, like, with, it happened in the early 1900s with World War One, where uh, like Leblowski or Lebowski, she
yeah.
she was one that was big on that, and then there was other people that were involved in it where they would have seances and stuff, and freaking that started the whole thing about electronics being able to freaking be used to contact the dead and like knocking sounds.
Yeah. I mean, and I've read I read a woman said that her husband passed away, but she got a call after he was supposed to be dead. I think he was killed in a car accident, but she had a message from him, and it was weird. So I'm like, I don't know how those things happen, you know, like that.
Think it could be like the residents or resonance.
I don't know, and I think didn't we have something happen with your cousin too, Austin? But that was when he was alive. I can't
Um,
remember what that was.
Years ago, your you and Dad's phones called his like at the
Oh,
same
yeah,
time,
that was it. That
and
was in the night. My phone had dialed out to him, and then I think he woke me up calling me back, or he called Austin. I can't remember which. And he's like, "Is something going on?" I mean, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and he's like, "I've got a call from your mom." And then, it had woke me up, and I looked, and I don't know. I think Austin got the call, but then when I looked at my phone, there was an outgoing call to Sam, and I was like, I didn't do that. I was asleep, you know. So I don't know how phones do some of that stuff, but I know they do, you know.
yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
I was trying to say the word right. It's residual. Like, do you think it could be something that's residual? Like doppelgangers are supposed to be residual imprints of freaking a person. Like
Are they people that have passed away though? Because
it
we
could be
saw,
people that are alive.
yeah, because Austin and I actually we were taking a walk down the road one night, and his girlfriend, or his wife now, was on our deck. She was out there talking on the phone or something. So we took a walk with the dogs, and we were coming back, and my husband, when we left, he was on the couch, and he was about half asleep. So anyway, we're coming back, and we saw his dad, my husband, walking into the shop. It had the big open garage door, and the light came on. And I said, "Well, your dad must have got up." And anyway, so we go in, and we're going in the house. We go in the house. Austin goes out to the deck, and I'm taking my shoes off, and I hear my husband snoring on the couch. And I'm like,
Hmm.
we just saw him go out there. There's no way he could be back in the house snoring on this couch, because that's where he was when we left. So, I went out to the deck, and I told us, I asked April, I said, "Did Marty get up and go out to the garage?" And she's like, "No, he's been in there asleep." I think she even said she went to the restroom or something, right? Austin, he was in there asleep.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and we were like, but we both just saw him going into the shop. It was so strange. And then finally, when my husband got up later, I asked him, I told him what happened. He said, "I don't know what that's about." He said, "But I wasn't up." He said, "I never got up after Monday." He said, "I didn't even know you guys went for a walk." So yeah, I don't know what that was. That's the one time I've seen a doppelganger. Yeah. And actually, talking about my husband, this was strange. Do you remember, Austin, when he worked in the shop with Mike? He worked in a shop, and it wasn't an old shop. It was a real nice shop and stuff. He said a guy came in that looked just him and freaked him out.
Yeah.
Yeah. He saw doppelgangers of himself a few times throughout his life.
We saw one of him, but I don't
From
know. Yeah.
from what he told us, because he said he saw one back when he was a kid too. Back when he worked at that old burger joint, he said he saw somebody that looked exactly like him.
Now,
Right.
is there a way you could tell the story word for word if you
What?
can remember it? Like how he said his stories to you and stuff word for word.
The one about the shop. Do you remember the details more than me, Austin? I said I think the guy kind of walked into the shop, and he didn't hear him.
Um, yeah, he was alone at the shop one one evening for some reason. I think it was during the winter when it gets dark early. So he was alone there just after it had gotten dark and there wasn't anybody around. He said he saw some guy walking through the shop with a black coat on and slightly longer hair and a beard, but he couldn't make out his features other than that exactly. But he said it was weird because the guy was, when he would walk, he couldn't hear his footsteps, which was really strange because it was pretty quiet in the shop. And he went to see who the guy was, but before he could get out to the next room, there was nobody there.
Now that's actually a sign right there of doppelgangers, because you always hear all of them say that stuff. Like when they actually go to try to make contact with the other, the other person, they're gone.
Well, yeah, and I remember the one he told about the restaurant. He said, he was like a cook, so you were behind like a McDonald's thing. They have all that stuff, and you're back there, but you can see the people that are at the counter that would come in to
You
pick
could
up
see the
food.
counter. You could see all the customers coming and going from the stove where he.
Said he was flipping his burgers, and he looked out and he saw this guy, and he said he looked just like him. But I don't think the guy disappeared. I mean, he got some food and left. But Marty said my husband said he was freaked out totally because it looked so much like him. So yeah, and it's strange in Middletown here. Um, I've seen a guy that looks like Austin a couple times, and so much so that I thought it was him. I thought that him and April were like in her dad's car or somebody else's, her mom's car or something, and something had happened. Because I think I texted him or called his wife and said, "Hey, were you guys out going over to the interstate tonight? Because I thought I saw Austin in his car." And she's like, "No." And I swear I see this person, but maybe you just, because it's your son or your husband or it's somebody you look for similarities. But I mean, I had to look 2 or 3 times, and I was sure it was Austin, the mannerisms and everything. So it's kind of weird sometimes.
Well, I've
Yeah.
actually listened and looked into all that, and I understand where people are coming from when they say that we look for similarities,
Yeah.
because there is like science behind that. Okay, but this isn't like the same as that.
I
Like
don't think,
no,
no.
I mean, what you guys are talking about is like completely different. Like they're talking about things like seeing a vision of Jesus in a freaking Burger King wrapper or something.
Well, yeah, and you can
Yeah,
look
it's.
at faces and things. Like you'll look at like how we see the man in the moon. You'll look for faces. That's something they've proven, but it's not
Yeah,
like that. You
yeah.
know, Middletown's a weird place here because I was working out with this older man, and um, he didn't tell me this, but the aerobic instructor did. I don't know what we were talking about. Something we were goofing off and laughing about aliens or something, and she's like, and the older man had left, and she said, that older man that was here, um, he was a veteran, and she said he swears he's lived in this town all of his life, and he says that there are people here that are aliens, but they just look like one of us, and you wouldn't know it. And she said he's the most no nonsense person. And I still go over there and work out, and I see that man, and he hardly ever talks to anybody. He goes in, does his job, and he's friendly, all right, but he doesn't. I mean, he doesn't look like a kind of person that would make up something like that. He's probably in his 70s.
Well,
That's
after
always freaking me out.
after the conversations we've had about freaking Miami and all that, I wouldn't doubt them. You know what I mean? Like freaking, there's a good chance you got aliens around there somewhere. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
there's
Yeah, I don't know. When my husband was alive, we used to take our 2 dogs up to the park here, and there was a little like a Dairy Queen area out. They call it Post Town, and we went out there to get the dogs some ice cream, and we got something to eat. But so we're sitting in our car, and it's a country, so you got some country folks there, and people just kids and stuff wearing shorts and everything. And so my husband are sitting there, and all of a sudden this gray car pulls up, and this guy gets out, and I swear he looked like something from, what is it? Close. What's that one with Will Smith in it? Um,
Fresh
you know,
Prince of Bel Air.
but no, but like he played in the Close.
Men in Black.
And black. So I'm sitting here with my ice cream. I'm looking at this guy. This guy gets out of his car. He has sunglasses on. He has a suit on. And I thought, well, that's not anything. But he was so perfect. Everything was so meticulous about him. It was eerie. I told my husband, I said, he looks like something from like another world. He said, yeah, it's really strange. He said the way he acts and everything. I said, I said maybe he's a detective or something. But
well, there's
it's just weird.
Other than Hollywood, like there's people who actually believe that there are men in black, right?
Well, that's what I told my husband. I said I never believed in that stuff, but I said he probably would make you rethink that for a few moments anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay going to sleep and everything. You're not like going to have the EBGBs and stuff and be all worried after this conversation, are you? Because this is...
And it's the strangest thing, because like things like this happen to me, and maybe they do other people too. But my boyfriend and he always likes to go to Starbucks and Kroger. So we go to Starbucks, and there's these three guys I'll see over there together sometimes on Saturdays, and they're probably in their mid-50s. And I just overheard, because you have to sit there and wait for your coffee. So I just overheard a little bit of their conversation, and I heard the one say, there really are things like that here. And then they were talking about paranormal stuff and aliens. And I was trying to hear them, but I couldn't hear it all. So I'm like, I wonder what they're talking about and if they've lived in this town a while. So, yeah. Next time I see them, I'm trying to listen more. Because they meet there and have coffee and talk. So.
Now,
yeah.
Bob Dub, I don't know for sure who she was referring to. She said, did you talk to him, Summer? And did you ask him if he wanted to say something?
No, I didn't. I was with my boyfriend, and then I did tell him, you overhear that? And he said, yeah, that's a little odd. And then I told him about the older gentleman at the Y. And he said, well, there's a lot of stuff we can't explain, so.
You make the third person that talks about the why, and that I've had conversations with about that. Austin brought it up in our conversation, then you said something, and then Michael Paul said something.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, and there's something about that.
I remember that. I remember his friend lived at the Y,
yeah,
and then he ended up getting killed or murdered, right? Was that it? Something? Yeah. Ooh, that's strange.
It is strange. And then Austin was talking about it too.
Yeah, that was where the paranormal, the Y was kind of where the whole paranormal thing, as all began for me. That has led to where I'm at today, being into all this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's kind of odd. And then I asked all of you, I was like, now, I don't know if you realize why I did that, but I asked all of you guys, have you ever known each other before this point, other than you and Austin, but like Michael Paul and all them?
I didn't know Michael Paul, but I listened to that video, or it was an interview with John, wasn't it, about the Y and that guy and his friend? Yes. But
which interview was that? Was that one of the water into wine ones?
Yeah, he mentioned it on the water and the wine, but it was also, he did one with me, and then before that he also did one with John, and all
that's the one I watched, was the earlier one, Austin, when I first started interviewing. I interviewed with John a few times. That's when I watched it.
That was the very first. That was the very first interview John did with Michael Paul, right?
Right.
Where they talk about the why a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'll go back and watch that one again.
That was really interesting to me. You know what I mean? And then like it keeps popping up. And then like with Michael Paul, he didn't realize that he always mentioned the number 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that funny? And then you kind of notice it, I guess. And so then he does, right? Oh, that's
Yeah.
strange.
He never noticed like the number 3 or something related to 3 always pops up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
all the time he was talking, I thought maybe he knew that, and then I brought it up to him, and he had no clue what I was talking about.
This is funny. I guess I should have, mentioned this one on my synchronicity show. Um, my boyfriend, because he was my boss at one time, he was getting ready to retire, and it was going to be exactly 3 months. And we went to this Chinese restaurant. All of us all used to go out to lunch, and he always wanted to go to the same restaurant in Oxford. It was this little Chinese restaurant, and they give you fortune cookies. So we went there, and he opened his fortune cookie, and it said, I can't remember the words exactly, but it said in 3 months there's going to be a very positive change coming for you. And it said exactly 3 months, and it was exactly going to be 3 months. I was like, oh my God, Gerald, that's so weird. So that's another strange, kind of thing too, that I
Oh,
thought of.
don't leave us hanging. What happened in 3 months?
He was going to retire. He was getting ready to retire. He'd put his retirement in. Yeah. So it was going to be June the 30th. So, and actually that might even been why we went out to lunch, is everybody was, it was getting close to summer and people start going on vacation. So everybody's like, hey, let's all go out to lunch with Gerald one more time because he's retiring. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and of course he wants to go to this restaurant that everybody always goes to. So we went there, and then it was like, yeah, and I was like, that's so weird, Gerald. Actually, he took a picture of it, I think. I think I still have a picture of it too, because it was so odd. It said in 3 months. It was
Yeah.
so precise. I was like, that's creepy.
Yeah.
But
That really is like now. Uh, the one thing that we were talking about with synchronicity too is like freaking everybody like talks about like the synchronicities and stuff like that, okay, but then they also like get the whole thing confused because they start putting like the spiritual stuff into it, like when you have those synchronistic events happening to you, okay, when you start seeing ghosts and when you start seeing spirits, that's when it goes to another level. You know what I mean? And like you're talking about right there, or you went, you got that fortune cookie, and then all of a sudden 3 months later he retires, right?
yeah, he had the date set. Yeah. So
Right.
we all, that was very weird.
That's synchronicity.
Yeah.
Now see
But
what the 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 spirit part, when you start seeing spirits and you start ghosts and paranormal stuff, that is what sets it apart. Like you can't just chuck that up to synchronicity, you know what I mean? Because
right.
honestly, I honestly believe that synchronicity is like it's a supernatural event. It's not paranormal. You know what I mean? It's something that every single person is capable of doing, of being able to pick up on synchronicities.
Okay. Okay.
You know?
Too, the synchronicities. Sometimes they're also created like when you're manifesting things, like when you visualize and whatever it is you're visualizing starts to manifest. Sometimes you'll have a synchronicity surrounding a manifestation,
Yeah.
which is kind of that's supernatural too. That more so than it is paranormal.
And,
Yeah.
and then like doppelgangers, we were talking about doppelgangers. Now, you could be mixing spirits up with doppelgangers.
Possibly. I never thought about that.
Residual residual effects of something that happened. You know what I mean? Like, and they also say that there's ghosts that are trapped within a routine that they've done. They would just completely
Yeah.
do it over and over again.
loop. What do they call it? Repeat haunting or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, for
Um,
me,
Yeah.
I would say that would be a synchronistic event. You know what I mean? And that probably isn't really even a spirit. It's probably just a residual effect of somebody's past life.
right. Right.
It's just like a pattern of energy replaying an event that was imprinted into it by.
Yeah. Kind of like the Lincoln. They said that train. They see that all the time. A lot of people that live around that area. They said anniversary of his death. That train. They'll see it.
Hmm.
Uh,
Well,
Yeah, they
everybody.
see his funeral train.
Hmm.
the repeat haunting. But yeah, I've never really seen a doppelganger except for, like I said, it was my husband. And then I was worried because some people say, "Oh, that's a bad omen. Something he's going to die or something." But that was, I mean, it was a couple years later that he died, so it wasn't right away. So I don't think that had anything to do with that. So
That
Well,
actually that that
it was,
actually brings me to a question I wanted to ask you guys. Now, death itself, do you think it's paranormal?
hmm.
death
No,
itself,
Yeah,
no,
like
but
deep.
I do think there's. I think
death.
maybe someday we'll understand it, but I think people know um a few weeks before they're going to die. Now, if you're sick, of course you know, like my husband, of course he knew he was not long for this world. But I'm just like you see people like
Well, let me
having
let
they're going
me
to have a car accident and they
oh,
say something weird
hold
a
on,
few weeks
Summer.
before.
Let me kind of explain that a little bit better, okay? Because death is a natural occurrence. Everybody
Right.
is gonna die. All
Yeah.
right. It's natural. All right.
Right.
But I mean, you have to die in order to become a spirit. You know what I mean?
Uh,
But my big question is do you think death, the act of dying, is actually a paranormal thing or not?
I was no, I think it's spiritual, isn't it? I feel like y-
Or is it? Is it more? Is it? I mean, it's. If you ask me, I think it's all of the above. I mean, a physical thing, and that your physical body dies, and then it's a paranormal thing, and that your lower mental and emotional bodies leave, and then a spiritual thing, and that your spirit, because we're ultimately spiritual beings in physical bodies, that your spirit ascends. So I think it's kind of all the above myself.
Hmm.
yeah. But there seems to be some kind of disconnect, like where you see ghosts that are, or people say they've had experiences with evil entities or ghosts that are upset. I think they get trapped or something. Something goes wrong, you know.
Yeah.
In that aspect, I guess it's paranormal, right?
Well, I mean, I
Yeah.
go over these things and I have to edit the videos. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I actually listen and like when I'm doing it and like the thought came to me while I was doing the editing. Now hold on, what about
Yeah.
death? You know what I mean? And then this whole thing with synchronicity and having conversations with Bob Dove about duality and dualism.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you think on those lines, like especially because do better. He came on the show with us the other day, and
Hmm.
he he mistakes dualism and duality, or he mixes it up with like coincidence and synchronicities. You know what I mean?
I don't
Yeah,
think
and
so.
they're distinctly different things.
Yeah. So it
No.
it kind of got me to where I was thinking a little bit more, and then I thought about it. Well, what about death? Is death paranormal? Is it? And then like Austin just said, all of the above. Because if you think about it, it's just as important as birth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something we all do and go through.
Uh,
Right. Yeah.
so I think that's a pretty good analogy. I think you did a good job, Austin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, and I said all the above.
Uh-huh. You taught us old people something today.
But now this
Yeah,
is
I mean, I've always thought it was a process of all the above because we're actually. Can you guys hear me?
yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I always thought it was a process of all the above because we're actually multi-dimensional. We're physical. We have a physical body in this physical plane, but we also have, you know, an etheric and an emotional and then a mental body, and then of course ultimately we're spirit. But those all exist, simultaneously in different planes. And when you go through the death process of your physical body and then your lower etheric and emotional mental body shedding from the physical body and your spirit shedding, it's really an all the above is the best way I know how to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, what I was starting to talk about earlier, and I think you remember this with your dad. It seems like there's you're starting to progress a couple weeks before you pass away. Now I know some people that die in accidents and stuff probably don't. But with my husband, like we in his hospital room, it felt like there was something around. It just felt heavy. Even before we knew that he was real sick, it just felt weird. And my husband wasn't really into paranormal a whole lot, but he was open to it, I suppose, a little. But so I went to visit him one night, and I heard something in the bathroom. And there's no windows open in hospitals; they're all self-contained now. And I was like, "What is that in the bathroom?" And he's like, "I don't know." He said, "This room's weird." He said, "Something's weird about it." And I got a bad feeling then. Um, and then so he came home for about a week or two, and then he went back to another room that was right across the hall. And one night he texted me and he said, "This room is really creeping me out." And I talked to somebody, maybe it was you, Austin. I don't know who it was. And they said they come, I think it was a nurse. She said, "He's getting ready. There's something that gets people ready." She said, we know what sometimes when people are going to die, we've seen like shadows or, uh, and things in the hall. We know. Or she said, "You can just feel it."
I remember on a paranormal show I was watching years ago. I can't remember which one it was. It was the one that was hosted by that Asian guy. You
Oh,
you might remember.
yeah.
Just if you remember it, just shout out what it was at some
Yeah.
point later on because I can't. I think it was Ghostly Encounters maybe, but it was there was a guy on there whose I guess his grandfather and he had met some deceased relatives, and he asked him what happens after you die, and he knew they couldn't answer him, and so it was like they were sitting thinking of a way to tell him for a second, and then they finally answered, well, we can't tell you everything, but immediately after you pass, somebody comes to meet you to guide you over to the other side. So,
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I was wanting to, or I was actually thinking when you were talking about that room and having that weird feeling. Like, do you think possibly death is an entity?
yes.
Well, yeah,
To,
because the one nurse that I talked to, well, actually, she used to be a beautician and then she became a nurse. But she told me, actually, on Facebook, I think she said that they had two people that were having drug overdoses at the hospital one night. And she said they saw like dark shadows going between the rooms. And one of them did die.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there has then maybe it is, you know.
It's a good thing to think about, and I think we're like entering like the coolest part of the paranormal part. You know what I mean? Because like, and I'm not I'm not a chick flick kind of guy. You know what I mean? But
Right.
the what was it? The Ghost Whisperer,
Yeah.
the way they do her with the whole ghost entities and death and everything. That
Yeah.
that was actually not the I don't like the mushy stuff where they talk all the peace and love and stuff,
Right.
but like the the dark entities that bounce off the walls and stuff. No, that
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you mention death, possibly being an entity. I mean, basically, the Bible says that death was introduced to um, humankind. You know, when Eve ate the forbidden fruit. So I mean, I guess the Bible sort of alludes to death being an entity because a natural it was something that was introduced to us.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you could take that way.
But you know what I said? I guess I got to correct myself because I said, you know, like a person that has cancer and they're terminal. Of course, they know they're going to die. But I remember the story that Sam, your cousin, told my nephew about he was on a ball team. So, and this is ties into like if you're going to have a terrible accident or something, maybe something comes around you too. Because there was a boy on the team, and he said he was seeing things. He
Mhm.
was telling the kids and stuff that he was seeing angels and weird stuff, and they were like, "Oh, he's just being silly." And then that boy ended up getting in a train accident and getting killed. A couple weeks later, he was riding home with some other people, and somebody they pulled out in front of this train because they had to go up a driveway over to get to their house, and it was a terrible accident. And I remember Sam telling us that how that freaked him out so badly because and did it freaked everybody out. My brother was actually the coach of that ball team, and my brother said it happened too. And he said, at the time nobody paying attention, but after it happened, they were like, "Well, what was he talking about?" So this was a few weeks before he passed away. So yes, his death was sudden, but something was coming around him, it seemed like. So,
Well, I know.
and like it could be an entity. He said they were
I
angels.
know. I
He thought
know.
they were angels.
I know. I went on a tangent about the whole control thing before, but
Yeah.
like there was a reason why I said that, and I know I probably didn't say it right, but like you're talking about how he started seeing these things. These are freaking signs that were in front of him before the actual occurrence happened. You know what I mean? And it's like people don't really understand what control is. Controls is the proper term for it. You have controls that are set up around you which freaking warn you against dangers. The only true form of control that there is control systems that are set up. Okay, like when you go into a factory, they have
Yeah.
controls set up in certain areas of the factory so that
Okay.
people don't hurt themselves. You know,
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I see that everywhere where I work. So
Well, yeah. Just you have to have structure and rules and things, but
and
um,
the thing about life though is it's the same basic concept. Like you have these warnings that are there, and if you have that connection where you can see the warnings, then you can pick up on them. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody can do that.
do you think you can prevent it? Because this is a story. It made me remember this, and it was just a little blur, but it scared me half to death when I thought back on it. I had a terrible truck accident. I think I had discussed that accident in one of my shows. And I think it was probably about a month before it happened. It was just a flash. I was um I was drying my hair. I had real long hair back then, and I was drying my hair with the dryer and a brush and all this. And I thought to myself, I didn't know where the thought came from. I was like, it would be really hard to do this with one hand because I was using both hands and stuff. And when I had my car accident, I broke my arm, and so it was awful. It was so hard to dry my hair, and I was trying to do it. and I didn't even remember it for a few days, and then I thought, oh my god, I remember when I was getting ready for work and I had that thought, and that was way before that accident happened.
Mhm.
So, do you think, Roger, that I could have prevented the accident if I had known? There's no way I would have known what that meant. But I, I guess if you could pick up on it, maybe it's like a psychic thing. You could prevent it.
I
You
forgot
know?
the term. It was something that had to do with recall. Um, but it has to do with that where you can recall certain events so that you can prevent a certain outcome.
Yeah,
Like
like when.
retrocognition or precognition?
Precognition would probably,
Yeah.
Okay.
but
So you think
the
the little
term
boy?
had recall in it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
I don't worry about it. It's just a term, but basically, you know what I mean. It was
Yep.
what you're talking about, like being able to freaking recognize something happening before it happens and stopping it, like going to a freaking stoplight. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you look at the freaking warning sign telling you not to
Right.
cross the street, and all of a sudden you have an event where it prevents you from getting ran over because you see yourself
Right.
getting ran over because you didn't pay attention to the sign.
That sounds like something out of Final Destination
Right.
where they
Well,
that
I
now that movie's about death being an entity.
Yeah.
yeah. But I feel like there in that little blur, like that few minutes that I thought that, I guess I knew somehow that I was going to hurt my arm, but there was no way I would ever have realized or been able to prevent it. I don't think. I mean, it
We
didn't scare me bad enough, and I went on with my life. I was busy. I never thought about it until
was there
after.
was there pain involved in the first incident?
Not at all. No, it was just this weird little thought, and I was like, "What?" Sometimes you just doing things and you think weird little thoughts, and I was like, "That was kind of strange, though." But I didn't really think any more about it at all.
But
Um,
so the second incident wasn't motivated by pain. You see, so that right there in itself tells you something. Usually, we're motivated by uh, feelings like pain, love, hate, things
well,
like
I was
that.
irritated. I was like, this is. I was trying to get to work and doing this stuff with my hair, and I'm like, oh God, I think I'm going to just cut it or something. But then I was doing this, and I was like, I was irritated. And I thought about it, and then I was like, yeah, that's all the reason I thought about it, I think. But then I think it very much tied into what was going to happen. And
Yeah.
it happens to other people too. Like, if you watch crime shows, and I watch them, like if you watch OJ, Ron Goldman
Yeah.
was killed. Was it Ron? Yeah, his dad was saying right before a few weeks before he passed away, he was saying weird things like, you know, um, like take advantage of your life. We only live once, and it doesn't last long enough. He said it was really strange some of the stuff he was saying, and then he ended up passing away. Getting killed. So somewhere in our subconscious mind or something, we know. I think
You think
you know those things.
they're picking up on the actual death before it's happening? They just don't realize that's what it is. Maybe.
But do you think it could be an entity? Because, like the little boy in the ball field, what was he seeing? I mean, he said they were angels. Are they entities coming to
Um,
collect him?
Now with Sam, referring to Sam, I remember years ago, me and him were hanging out at the old house. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Now I can see you.
Okay, I'll just make sure. I dropped out of the connection for a minute. I
Yeah.
remember years ago, me and him were hanging out at the old house, and he was real bad into drugs at that time. You kind of tell he wasn't doing very well. And our old dog Leo was laying up there with both of us. We were sitting on my bed, and Leo started shaking. I was like, I looked at Sam and I asked him, I was like, I wonder why Leo's shaking so bad all of a sudden. And Sam was like, it's probably because he can see this reaper that's always standing over me. And Sam did a lot of paintings of reapers and stuff too, and so he I think he was being followed for at least a couple years by the entity of death himself before he finally passed.
It's interesting you talk about drugs because I remember our hairdresser saying that when she became a nurse and that the two guys that were having the drug overdoses, how they saw the dark entities in the hall. And they were having, like I said, drug overdoses. So I don't know if that has something to do with that.
Now that actually kind of seeps into a little bit about what me and Bob Dove were talking about the other day. I was trying my best to explain Zoroastrianism to her, and the thing about Zoroastrianism is they believe that you have what they call Asha, okay? And Asha is the ideal world, the world that Ahura Mazda thought of in his mind. And now, when it's in his mind, it's the perfect world. But once it's released into the material world, it's tainted by two types of spirits. One spirit, it supports Asha, which is the perfect ideal world, and then there's spirits that oppose Asha. And those spirits that oppose Asha are the ones that taint the ideal world. You know what I mean? And they're the ones that are the ones that cause frustration and things like that. So,
or they're the ones we're at war with.
Right.
That
and that is kind of what I know. I was going somewhere with that, but that's what it kind of relates to me when you were talking about what you were just talking about. So
on the subject of drugs too, one of the most interesting aspects of it, at least in my personal experience, was when I was into heroin for the brief time that I was. My experience with it was not as just a substance itself, just an inanimate substance.
Right.
I experienced it as literally a living, breathing thing. It was like it would speak to problems in my life and make me feel real great about them. But at the same time, it was like a Komodo dragon that was taking bites out of me. And then it would just wait for me to come back to it so it could take a bite out of me again. Yeah. So it was like this living, breathing thing that was real nice to me, but at the same time it was working on me, and then it turned on me, and finally I was able to, by the grace of God, to break away from it. But that's been my experience, with that, at least. Was not as an inanimate substance like a lot of people think, but actually a living, breathing thing. And the same with psychedelics. Psychedelics spoke to me too, and it was a different kind of experience. But
well, I wonder if the dark entities are like, I don't know. Maybe if you succumb to drugs, though, do they take you away, and then you don't? I don't know. Are they trying to influence you like they're demons, and they're waiting?
The way you
they can be, yes.
Right. Well, you two, I'm glad you said something because it reminded me of where I was at. Now, like the positive spirits, okay? They the
little boy that saw the angels, right? I'm
right.
sorry, I didn't want to, but yeah.
Right. Now, that is the good mind, okay? Now,
yeah.
If you want to have a good life and you want to do good and progress in a positive spiritual manner, you'll have the good mind and focus on good things. Now, there's also the opposite of that, which is the negative things, and there's people throughout history who's focused and seeing the bad things and the negative things because they were focusing on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what it does is it comes down to your mind and what you focus on. So if you're focusing on angels, you'll see angels. If you see the demons and you see the spirits of death, and that's what you'll see. You see what I
Well,
mean?
how are the other people seeing it though? Like the nurses and stuff are saying, you
They're
know,
they're in a
all
hospital. They see death every day. I mean, you know what I
so,
mean?
but they were around those two. Okay, yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
that you think about it, like they're there. They're right there on the front. On the front. I mean, they see it every single day.
They've
Right.
got like a foot. They've got like a foot in this world and a foot in the other. A lot of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So when you're on the front lines where people are dying like that, there's a lot more of that than there would be in the everyday world.
yeah,
Yeah. There's a lot of paranormal stories about hospitals and nurses and things like that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah,
But yeah, that
let's think
that
about.
that's what you guys were talking about, and it just stuck out to me right there because we were just talking about that, and like um, it's interesting because it's like I said, having these conversations with all you guys has really freaking started making my mind think. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
and just to let you know, I'm not a Zoroastrian. I mean, I don't do all that stuff. So if
Yeah.
you know anything about it, like I
No, I
don't,
don't.
I'm trying to keep it by
I know a little bit about it, but
What
I'm
is
not
it?
a Zoroastrianism.
Ahura
What is?
Mazda. It's basically it's ancient Persian beliefs. The wise men out of the Bible, the three wise men that visited Jesus, they were
Oh,
Zoroastrian.
okay.
It was based off the god Zoroaster, I think, or the
Zoroaster is the one who created the religion, and Ahura
yeah.
Mazda was the deity that they that would be their equivalent of God. So,
Okay, but it doesn't have to do with the what's the Greek ones, Austin Atlas and all those. Like
Oh, the Greek mythology. No,
it's not that. That's what I was thinking. It might. Okay.
no, that doesn't have to do with Greek mythology. It was an ancient Persian religion.
Yeah.
no.
Um. Well, anyway, back to I guess we should back to the phone thing though. I mean, what do you guys think about that? A lot of people are kind of freaked out about the AT&T thing. Now AT&T is saying, "Oh, it was just what did they say? It was some kind of
So it was just a technical glitch in expanding their network. But who knows? Who knows? We might not know the details of what really happened for a while to come.
Well,
I
what's scary is I guess people couldn't call 911 or they couldn't get out an emergency. I don't know. I It didn't happen to me. I have T-Mobile, but I guess it happened to your phone a little bit, right, Austin?
Well, you
Yeah. Me and my wife's phones were both out half that day.
you know that people believe that like technology is going to be the apocalypse, right? Like it's going to end up turning on us and doing bad things to us. Is
Well, you
Oh,
think
absolutely.
the AIs, that's ridiculous. And oh, you know what they did the other day, which really freaked me out going to this. I know I call about the insurance company. So they said, we're doing a new thing called voice recognition. Push one, and if you and speak and say something, and then you won't have to put in all this information. It's like, oh, that's really creepy. And I was
yeah,
like, no,
yeah. YouTube's doing it too.
huh?
YouTube is doing it too.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
they have
that's
the
creepy
facial
stuff, man.
they have facial recognition for passcodes. Like my boyfriend uses that. I told him he doesn't like any of that technology, but he uses that, and I was like, "That's creepy."
Well,
You're
I
doing
I
facial rec.
do I do have an idea for my channel though. Like if
Really?
yeah, if I go into the settings and I do a questionnaire and I tell
Yeah.
them that I'm homosexual, freaking, I will get freaking special privilege. Nobody will harass me for anything.
Really?
All I gotta do is go in there and tell them I'm homosexual. And I'm set.
Well, yeah, that's a good way to get people off your back nowadays. Like I have a friend I went out to dinner with her the other night, and she said her boss was giving her a hard time, and her daughter said, "Just tell them," because she's older than me, and she said, "Just tell them that they're going to get written up for age discrimination, or that you're going to file suit." And she did, and she said now they're all real nice to her.
Yeah,
So I was like, "Yeah, that's weird,
that's
right?"
that's the thing, man. It's like all of a sudden, like you can learn loops in the system now and freaking get away with it, and that's what it is. It's a system. You know what I mean? And
The
yeah,
Matrix.
and eventually, eventually, this technology is going to turn against us, and so I mean,
Well, it has a life of its own. It's its own thing that it's its own monster we've created for ourselves.
yeah,
Well, did you tell Roger and everybody that's listening that about the some of the stuff computers do, and they really don't know how they're doing it. They're learning on their
yeah.
Like emergent behavior.
behavior. It's really strange.
Me and
Yeah.
this Tan and Mark have been doing a tech talk episodes, and we got into the conversation of artificial intelligence. And the weird part about it is now the computers are able to freaking do paradigms. They can change from one paradigm to another. Now that right there is amazing, because like, okay, something that's simple for us to think about is complicated for a computer. Now, like me, I can ask you, what is the color of brown, right? And you know what the
Hmm.
color of brown is. Now, if I turn around and I ask you, what does brown smell like, what would you say?
Shit.
Okay. A computer
It's the
doesn't,
first thought that pops into my mind.
right?
Or you know,
A computer can't do that. They're confused by it. They don't know what the color brown smells like. Now
But
they do.
the AIs do. The
Yeah.
AIs right like they think that they're going to be like assistants for doctors and lawyers, and because they can write stuff in just a few minutes that takes us what? I don't know. I watched a show about it, and it was just unreal
Uh-huh.
what they can do. And
oh,
then they
stuff
manipulate.
that could take like 5 to 10 years of research, and
Yeah.
AI can do in a fraction of a second and have it all figured out.
And the
Hmm.
creepy thing on the show I was watching, I think you watched it too, Austin, is I think I sent you that. They
So that 60
they
minute
had
segment
yeah, they had
on AI, you'll have to share that with Roger if he hasn't seen it.
yeah, they had they wrote it the thing wrote an article, and it had all these emotions and stuff in it. And it didn't really it wasn't a human, but it had the AI had the properties and wrote the story with all these emotional things going on. It was crazy.
Yeah.
They just gave it the instructions, and it wrote it like, a heartbroken person would write the story.
And it was also like referencing authors and some of the stuff it wrote, and
Yeah.
books from these authors that don't exist, at least not in our world, like the Mandela effect, like
Well, I can take it deeper if you guys want, but that's going to take a
Yeah.
whole
oh,
hour.
I couldn't hear you. I think the audio cut out.
No, I said that in
Sorry
a
if I
low
talked
voice.
over you, Roger.
No, I said that in a
Oh,
low
okay.
voice because I didn't really
Oh, okay.
want you to
I
hear me.
oh,
I
okay.
can take that deeper, being honest, but it would take an entire hour. Have you ever heard the story behind the Cylons?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Have you ever watched Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't.
Okay. Now there's actually people who believe in that, and it goes back for well over almost 100 years.
Right.
And when it comes to what you're saying there, they actually have like an entire freaking cult following that believes that we evolved with certain artificial behaviors. Like we're actually creating these computers and everything, and what it really is what we are. We're supposed to be synthetic. Like we believe that we're actually biologically natural, but we're synthetic beings that were created synthetically by some other being in the past.
That makes sense. That's very possible.
It's really, and all of this, the people that were involved in creating the old episodes of Babylon or Battlestar Galactica
Yeah.
believe this. I mean, they literally believe this, and this was like back in the 1970s.
Wow.
I mean, if we're to believe that we were created by God, then yeah, on some level, we are synthetic.
Yeah.
If you know, if God or some creator created us, like many believe, then yeah, we are or synthetic, at least on some level.
Yeah.
Hmm. Wow.
So we actually came to 1 hour now. So
Yeah. Yeah, we can ready to wrap it up. I guess so. Oh, there's this. This is funny. I remember when we first got answering machines. There was a lot of I've talked to a lot of people about answer machines and messages on those from people that supposedly passed away. But this was just funny. One night, our phone rang and it was late, and it went to the answer machine. And this drunk guy, I guess he called our number by mistake, and he said, "This is your wife's boyfriend, and I'm going to kick your ass."
oh hell, that was me, dude.
Probably, it probably was.
I told you a little bit about my past. I mean, that was probably me just doing a random number and freaking talking drunk on the
my
phone.
husband was like, he was like confused for a minute, and he's like, "Well, I could think maybe it would be your boyfriend, but not the way that guy sounded."
Oh, Mom, before we wrap this up, you should tell them the one story about the friend of yours back in the 70s whose dad got killed when the car he was working on collapsed on him. Remember, he had it jacked up.
Oh.
We're talking about strange stories of technology stuff. Don't leave that out.
Oh, yeah.
I just now remembered it.
Tape player. Okay. Yeah. This my first boyfriend, he lived in this country house, and then up the road from him, it was a dead end road. There was this big, huge house, and the man that lived there was out in the garage working on his car, and you know how they used to jack them up in the garage, and it's dangerous. Well, the jack slipped, and the car fell on him, and they couldn't. It was out in the country, but he was dead right away, I think. So anyway, this guy died in the garage, and so my boyfriend's sister ended up dating the guy right next door, and she was at that house cleaning the house for her boyfriend. They were going to have dinner that night, and that was the person that died. That was his son. You know, she was dating his son, and she was cleaning the house, and she was listening to some music on the radio, and then I think there was a CD player there, and it just came on, and it scared her half to death. And she said there was a lot of stuff happening in her boyfriend's house that they felt it was like his dad, because he died there so suddenly and everything. So she was scared half to death, and she said, "I'm not going into that house anymore by myself. I'm never going up there alone." So yeah, it was really creepy. Yeah, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, that's the best story about strange things happening with technology. It's a good thing I remembered it just as we were getting ready to wrap up.
That's amazing.
Like a radio coming on spooky, but something about a phonograph or a CD player, not a CD player, it was an 8-track tape player. That's what it was. An 8-track tape player. It's scary, because it sounds weird,
They're a little scarier than some of the modern technology, even though the modern technology is probably way more dangerous now, with all the life of its own than any of the old stuff was.
And electronics wise too, you got to think about it. It must be a lot easier for spirits if they can control electronics, because that means today it's easier for them compared to back then with 8 tracks and turntables and stuff like that. So like they actually had to make an effort to do it back then, but now they can just get into the wiring and mess around with the
I think spirits will start using technology to literally cross over into our reality. So eventually, if technology progresses enough and spirits learn how to work with it, there probably won't even be a void between the living and the dead anymore. That the void that we're familiar with now that separates us from the dead, it might cease to exist.
Now you're talking Superman shit. Like, you realize that, right? Now you're going to get me I've already started talking about Battlestar Galactica. Now I'm going to have to start talking about Superman. Okay, come on.
That's kind of, stuff like Superman and Spider-Man and The Fly and things like that.
The Twilight,
they're not so far.
Specifically, Superman. Like, you understand, like, where he came from, right? Krypton. Yeah. Well, Krypton had a computer system where they could freaking download their consciousness, and you could literally see your freaking great-great-great-grandparents and have a conversation with them. And
wow.
Like you could actually...
Well,
you can do that now.
No, things like Neuralink and stuff are you know about Neuralink, Roger, right?
Oh, explain it. What?
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, you know about Neuralink, right?
Well, explain it. I don't...
Are you familiar?
No.
Oh, okay. Neuralink is a technology being developed by Elon Musk. I forget which company it is of his. I think it's just a venture of his right now, but it's a microchip they can implant into the human brain that interfaces with the nervous system and the human mind.
Oh, wow.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're already experimenting with that. So it can interface. The idea is for it to interface with the human consciousness and the nervous system. Now, right now, it's well-intentioned because they're talking about using it for paralyzed people and stuff, but we all know the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it's probably going to go horribly wrong. And
now, that sounds familiar to what I heard about them trying to come out with the new boards, like Back to the Future. Remember the fucking hoverboards?
Mm-hmm.
They said they were going to have them out. I heard that they're doing something like that where you can stand on these boards and you don't have to like do anything physically. Just think, turn left, turn right.
Oh yeah, because they know what you're thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like and this is probably a real, what do you call it, rough version of that, but when you're doing your spelling now or you're typing, how it spell checks and changes your words, I use that all the time when I worked on computer programs. It would correct you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like that, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Of it.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. I'll look up some stuff on Neuralink, and I'll send a link on Discord for you guys to read up on it.
Yeah, post that stuff, man. Everything that we've discussed, if you have links for any kind of information, post it.
Oh, okay. Absolutely, yeah.
That does go back to the voice stuff, though. Like at the insurance, and they're going to recognize your voice So, and then maybe they'll be asking you for a password or some kind of word. Who knows? But that's just freaky stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and they have eye recognition, I think, to log in. Like if you're clocking in now, don't they? I think Kroger's does that. Some corporations do that.
Yeah.
You just look into a little thing and they do that.
Retinal.
Yeah. So,
That's
and,
crazy. Like all the cool sci-fi movies about outer space.
and also I think, I don't know if we discussed this another time, but it seems like we did. They're thinking about using it with patients with Alzheimer's, but they're starting with pets, like lost pets. You put a little chip in them, but it's with your iPhone you can find them. You can, what do you call it? Do an app. You set up an app. The chips in them,
Chase those
and
slaves down.
you they have those now. I think it's in the collars a lot of times now, where wherever your dog is. And I just read on Facebook a couple weeks ago, this woman tracked her dog all over the place, and she
Hmm.
finally found him because he had that little chip in his collar, and she had the app on her iPhone, and
Now
she
see,
went
I, I
around.
I call that a slave mentality. Okay, like I have a issue with like animals being called pets. Like my cat, I have a cat. He's my buddy. I don't have.
Yeah.
I've never even named
Yeah,
him.
Wilbur's my buddy.
Well,
Yeah.
pets or whatever, but and they're going to start using them though, like they said with Alzheimer's patients, because they wander off so much, and then now the next thing will be, well, you want to know where your child's at, so you want to be able to
The
find
road to
them.
hell's paved with good intentions.
Yep.
Next thing, they'll just get that you can scan into the phone, and then your parents or your person that you want to know where you're at will be able to find you.
Yeah.
I mean, I just couldn't believe it the other day though. The ladies was like, she said, I ran. She said he was so far away, and then he came back, and then I ran over here, and I was like, oh my goodness. So she tracked that dog for almost a day before she found him with that.
Mhm.
So it's great, like you said, Austin. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yeah.
Oh, it always starts off wonderful. It's always Satan will work miracles, but those miracles turn on you. There's a dark side to it.
Yeah, like
And
what's the true motive behind the technology? You know what I'm saying? Okay, it's. I mean, first of all, freaking that dog wanted to be gone for a day and a half for a reason. All right.
he just wanted to take off and have
Yeah.
Right.
So why
Um,
can't you just leave the dude alone? You know what you got to hunt him down and stalk him.
Well, he might have gotten killed though, because he was in town too, and he could have gotten killed. But
He was happy. I bet you he peed on every freaking water thing there in town. He freaking had a ball. He had a day and a half away from everybody.
yeah. Now my daughter, she's more into like the modern technology, I guess, than Austin. But a few years ago, remember she had Find Friends on her iPhone.
Yeah.
And she had her and her group of friends and her husband, they kind of always were checking on each other because they knew where each other was at. And I was on there, and I'd turn it off, and then she'd tell me to turn it back on, and then she'd say, well, you've been here a lot. And I was like, I turned it off because I was like, you
Yeah.
don't need to know where I'm at all the time. But
No.
what was really good is I got lost one time. I was it was when my husband was sick, and I was just so stressed out, and I left work and I went the wrong way, and I ended up on the interstate going to Dayton, which is absolutely the opposite way because I think I just was so stressed. So I called Chantel, and she said, turn on your find friend, or that find friend thing. And she said, I know exactly where you're at, and I'll walk you out of it. She said, I'll tell you where to go. And so she did, and I got turned back around and got back on the right route. Because,
Mhm.
and that was a good thing about it.
Yeah.
you
Well, I
know?
mean, there's nothing wrong with going to Dayton. It's.
No. Yeah, but my husband was in Fairfield.
But
Like
still,
it
I mean, shit. Like, if you were on your way to Dayton, I heard that's actually a pretty good town. I mean, Like,
Yeah, I guess if I wanted to go party,
It has its
yeah,
it has its good areas.
yeah,
talk about
go up there, go up
subconscious.
there and freaking party down and freaking hang out. Like,
Oh,
there's a
I,
reason. There's a reason why you went the wrong direction and you was stressed out and you was heading towards Dayton. Maybe you needed to go to Dayton. You know what I
I,
mean?
I was trying to.
Subconsciously.
Yeah.
Things were very stressful, so maybe I was trying to go up and party, but it's like, nah, it's gonna.
You got that. You got that technology that said no. You got to go this way.
Well, I was on the interstate, and I'm not. I'm kind of scared to drive on the interstate because I had such a bad accident, and I'm not very good. So
Oh
I was out
yeah.
on the interstate, and there was all these semis around me, and I was almost having I mean, I was totally just about ready to lose it. She was like, "Just go to the truck stop,"
Oh
and
hell.
turned around, and I did.
Yeah. Stressed out about semis and shit, and she's telling you to go to a truck stop. Oh
Well, she
hell.
wanted to get off the interstate because I was like going further and further, and she's like, "You can't turn around until you just better get over to this truck stop and get turned back around." But yeah, that
Yeah.
was a good thing
Yeah.
about it. So yeah,
I'm
there's
glad I'm glad you got back on track though, cause
yeah. I mean, I was always giving her hell about that. I was like, "Oh, that's so crazy. You're tracking everybody and stuff." But then she was like, "See, well, it came in convenient and it was good for you."
yeah,
So
she's holding
yeah,
it against you. She's
yeah.
like, you can't be anti-technology, cause look at this. This is what happened.
Yeah.
Well, I had no idea.
Exactly. It'll be good. It'll be good until it isn't.
Right.
I had
Like,
no idea it worked like that.
you know,
But
when frickin' the Terminator comes, you just think, okay, how important is that frickin' truck stop? You know?
Terminator. Okay.
You're done. You're like, that's enough. He's going crazy now. Look at that crazy talk.
You play you play a lot of video games?
Not well, yeah, actually I do, but
Yeah.
I don't really want to get into that on a video about ghosts and synchronicity
Right.
because video games are the crazy stuff. That's actually something I think we do need to talk about now that you get brought all that technology stuff up because that
Do you,
really well
Well, I was reading about those. I was reading about those Alpha Draconians today for that Everything About Aliens
yeah
series, and they talk about how they actually control how much technology we wind up with and stuff.
yeah yeah
wow.
we should bring that up. That yeah, I've that's
So do you have some weird stuff happen with your video games? You probably do.
well just the actual games. Like when you're playing them and you do stuff like this, you can't help but stop and put two and two together. You know what I mean? Like, um, especially when it comes to what's going on the internet and the information that's being put out. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing video games and you're playing role playing games and stuff like that, and you start hearing stuff on the internet concerning the paranormal and spaceships and UFOs, you can kind of tell
Yeah.
who are the bullshitters and who aren't. You know,
Yeah.
because
Now,
there's people that get on the internet who just sit around playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then all of a sudden they freaking start talking Dungeons and Dragon shit, saying that it's a
well,
ghost or it's
Yeah.
uh,
it's,
Yeah. There's a lot of idiots out there.
yeah
what was that thing? Is it called? What's the thing? My boyfriend said he went to his nieces and the kids had it for Christmas where it's an alternate reality. You wear the glasses. He thinks it's
VR
all the meta stuff or something. Is that what it is? Or
VR virtual reality.
yeah, and he
Yeah.
tried
Virtual reality.
on for a minute, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, no, no, it's just too
Well,
odd."
that's the good stuff because like eventually we're gonna have robot sex.
Yeah. Yeah, we will.
Okay, now that's the stuff that really needs to be discussed because like freaking everybody in the tech world has been talking about robot sex since the 70s. I mean, there's TV shows movies that were made where, you know,
Yeah.
and I know it sounds weird when you hear it, but it's actually an important conversation to have because like people aren't going to freaking want to have relationships with anymore when they can freaking just have a computer or a robot.
Well, I think that's already happening because I read somewhere that a lot of adolescents and stuff now don't want to learn to drive. They're not as sexually active as adolescents were 20 years ago. It's like they just don't really care. And when we were younger, we were like, well, you want to drive and you want to have boyfriends and girlfriends. But
You
it's
knew what
not.
Oh yeah.
you knew what all that was about, like when you had a hot rod car and a girlfriend. I mean, that kind of went hand in hand. You know what I mean? It was like
Right.
so.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
there's something changing. There's a shift, and that's weird. Yeah, like my neighbor, he's got a son, and he's not even a teenager now, but he said, my son had a girlfriend, but she's too much. He said she's too much trouble. It takes too much effort, so he's just don't want to date anybody. I said, well, how old is he? He's in his 20s.
yeah.
So, he's like, I don't know. It's just not like it used to be. He doesn't seem to care about that.
Okay, now
It's
Bob Dub said she had to go and she enjoyed the show.
Thank you for listening to us just blab on. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob Dub.
Have a good evening. Well, I guess we should get off. Oh my gosh, it's 10 o'clock. Is it 10? Can we go?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
You just kept talking and talking and talking.
Well, you did say that we were going to wrap the show up, but you said we were here about an hour. I thought that was just a.
That was like 21 minutes ago.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah,
excited.
Yeah.
You got excited is what it was. It's like
Well,
she
we
got
kind
fired.
of got into a whole nother subject.
This is some interesting stuff we've been talking about. So
I
Right.
think we should continue it on you just came up with like perfect topics for us to talk about later on.
Yeah.
oh yeah, and I even touched on the everything about alien stuff I'm doing the research for and stuff, which I'm amazed at how much that ties into all these paranormal concepts. They're not separate really. A lot of them tie into each other in just so many amazing ways.
Yeah.
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 I thought it was interesting about. I always thought that was kind of bullcrap about the shadow people and aliens, but what happened with Austin and I makes me kind of think it might have some validity.
Now
So-
hold on. You're gonna get us started again.
Yes.
You're gonna get us started.
Yeah. We're at a perfect
Yeah.
we're at the perfect point where we could leave our viewers the cliffhanger,
Yeah.
going forward into the next
Your
episode.
mom's a troublemaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a troublemaker.
Yeah. I talk about this stuff a lot because we've just had a lot of experiences. I thought that we were just like other people, but I don't think we are.
No.
No.
We're not. We wouldn't be here if we were.
Okay. That's just up to me. We're gonna wrap up this show tonight. Was there any more comments or anything, Roger, or has it been a quiet night?
that was it. We
Okay.
we did all of the comments and stuff, so you're good to go.
Okay. Well, we'll talk later. Thanks for everybody that's been listening. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you. Take it easy. God bless.
You too.